morning, good afternoon. My name's Nate. You know the deal. This is Smashing the Party. Welcome. This all spawned from a thread that I posted, and I did a rant yesterday that talked about you cannot fucking legislate morality. That is a statement I'm going to fucking take to my grave. You can't legislate morality. You can, and I said this in regards to, you know, Republicans passing these laws because they have this idea. A lot of times their religion comes through. Unfortunately, America's right is filled with a lot of folks that really like to infuse their religious beliefs onto everyone else, despite the fact that this country was founded without that notion in mind. So again, this is a problem for how people think. People are really quick to say, you know what, you can legislate morality. And then they say, well, look at murder, look at rape. The fuck are you talking about? Are you suggesting that if we didn't have laws, people would be raping and pillaging? Okay, there's an argument to be made for that. There's an argument to be made. Some people will rape and pillage if there's no laws for it. So what do you do to regulate that behavior? You create incentives or punishments. There's nothing in there that says anything about morality. Morality is these people obviously don't have any morals because they need a law to regulate their behavior. No fucking law we create is going to give them morality or create morality. Do you understand that? So there's a huge difference between modifying or regulating behavior and incentivizing and punishing that behavior depending on how you want it to go versus legislating morality. Now, maybe we need to define morality. Maybe we need to find what the concept of morality is in everyone's mind, but I truly believe this is like kind of the root of colonialism and a lot of reasons why we still have fucking problems today. Because people think that if you pass a law, then it's the fucking problem solved. And people are just going to comply to that, or morality is going to be infused into society because we have laws. And so there's an argument to be made for these folks that says, hey, more fucking laws and we have more morals. If we have the right laws, then we'll have the right morals. How fucking silly is that? How silly is that? But what it is it's a mentality that says, hey, look at these people. They're living different than me. I don't understand how they're doing it. So we need to go in there and inject our morality. We need to go in there and set some rules and regulate their behavior because their behavior doesn't sync up with our morality. And so therefore, we need to legislate morality. Bullshit. You're not legislating morality. You're legislating behavior. You're changing behavior. If somebody believes that it is okay for two people of different races to get married, and they get married despite the fact that laws are on the books that say it's illegal, are they now immoral? Are they immoral because they're fucking two people got married that are interracial? I mean, come on. This is where nuance is important. And this is where it's important for people to understand you cannot pass a law to change behavior. You cannot pass a law to regulate morality. You can change hearts and minds through education. And some people fucking use religion, unfortunately, to change hearts and minds. And again, I'm not saying religion's bad, but I think when it's infused into somebody at a small age, you could call it indoctrination or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But they're taking away the free will of that person to learn about the world, in my opinion. I'm not going to go down that path. That's a whole nother topic I'd love to really, really fucking beat up. But I just want to focus on this concept of, and I kid you not, it is pervasive on both sides of the aisle. People think that you can legislate morality. And they'll Google shit and they'll say rape, murder, what happens? And so my next question is, what the fuck is wrong with you people that you just all of a sudden want to rape? If there wasn't a law for it, you'd just be raping people? No. It's of course there's people out there that don't have the same morals as I do, that believe that it's okay to rape somebody. That no law is going to change that person. We can regulate their behavior. We can incentivize their behavior, or we can punish their behavior, but we're not going to change their morals. There's a difference there, and it's very important because the reason why it's important is because we continue to pass laws and patch up the system as opposed to actually addressing the root cause of it. And people will just kind of pull a fucking Pontius Pilate and say, look, we've got laws on the books for that. That doesn't necessarily mean people are following the laws. That doesn't necessarily mean people are going to be more moral because you have more rules. And so this concept that you can legislate morality is dangerous. And it's why the fuck we're in our situation, because we have problems that people think, well, there's a law against people using drugs. People are still fucking using drugs. And by the way, is it immoral necessarily to violate the law? Because you're suggesting that passing laws essentially creates some kind of scope of morality. And now all of a sudden, if somebody's violating those laws, they're immoral. Guess what the fuck the civil rights movement was about? Were those people immoral? Come on, man. Stop that bullshit. Even Martin Luther King acknowledges the fact that you can't legislate fucking morality. He does suggest that you can infuse education and religion and manipulate and change hearts and minds and regulate behavior, but there's no legislating morality, okay? Morality, and if you want to really get down to it, there's one fucking rule we need. Do unto others as you want done to you. That's the golden rule. It exists in almost every fucking religion. So why do we need other laws and rules? If you really, if people were moral, that would be the only law we needed. And so you can't legislate morality. You can change behavior through legislation, but you can't say, hey, look, start believing or start changing your morals and start, it's the concept of saying that you're going to make people believe a certain way or have this change of mind is far-fetched. You're not going to, no matter how illegal you make drugs, people are going to use drugs. No matter how illegal you make murder, people are still going to fucking murder. So the laws obviously aren't working. Apparently, if you can create a law and oh, you're saying those are one-offs? See, now everything starts to break down, because now you say, well, you know what? When I said legislate morality, I meant you really meant, what you meant was you want to regulate behavior and you want to incentivize and punish depending on that behavior, which is fine, and that argument's fucking valid. But to suggest that we can all of a sudden create a moral society with a lot of laws is so goddamn privileged. It's such a, all right, I've now instituted this rule or this law, and now you all are moral. I mean, what the fuck is that? So no offense to you, by the way, which, again, this is a friend of mine, but I get so fed up when I hear this argument because it's so short-sighted. It's like, what are you talking about? You can legislate morality. You can change behavior. You can modify behavior. You can incentivize behavior. I've said that 15 million times. But you cannot all of a sudden instill morals in somebody through a law. And the other argument that counters this is, what happens when the law is fucking wrong? Then people who violate the law are immoral? Do you understand why those two shouldn't be intertwined? They should not. Because sometimes the laws are fucking built for the privileged and the people that don't have power. And so guess what? Anything you do is going to be a violation of this moral principle that you've set up. So I will fucking shoot down this argument every fucking time I see it, because it is an example of the privilege that some people look at. And by the way, this person has I'm not attacking this person individually. I'm just saying this philosophy comes from this idea that, hey, those people are living differently than me, and so I need to have some rules for them so that they can match my moral aptitude, whatever that fucking might be. And so take fucking morality out of it. Let's talk about behavior. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about changing hearts and minds. As drastic as that sounds, we're fucking humans. That's a possibility. It's a harder one, but it's something you can do. It's also, for instance, let's take any of the things that people listed as being an example of morality. Let's just take, my favorite's drugs, so I'll pick something else. Let's take murder. So do you think that if we increase the penalty for murder, that it's going to happen less? No, we have death penalties. It still happens. Does it mean people are immoral? Sometimes it's an accident. Does that mean that person's immoral? Sometimes somebody accidentally breaks the law. Does that mean that person is immoral? And so if you start to go down that path, you start to realize that the argument breaks down pretty quickly. Because legislation and legislating morality is not, it's not even possible. You can change behavior. Now, you can change hearts and minds through education. You can instill morals through education, through teaching, but penalties and incentives don't affect morals. You don't all of a sudden say, well, I'm going to change my morals today because there's a larger penalty for something. So I don't understand. You know, I understand how people come to this conclusion. It's popular. Most people probably in the world think this way, but it's incorrect. It doesn't make sense, and it's the reason why we have these problems that never come out at the beginning, because people say, well, we'll just go to fucking Congress and pass another law, pass another law, pass another law. Make more morality, right? Make some morality soup with some fucking legislation. What the fuck is that? We can change behavior. We can't legislate morality. I want anybody that thinks we can legislate morality out of fucking Congress. I want people in there that look at data and say, look, here's behavior patterns that we see in this population. Here's what we need to do to fix it. We need more education here. We need more incentives here. We need more punishment here. But that's it. Morality is nowhere on that fucking spectrum. The real only moral rule that I think is important is do unto others as you want done to you. That's it. Everything else is fucking falls under that umbrella. And so there's where your morals are, but you can't like, for instance, when the let's just call them the fucking colonial land stealers came to America, they did this same fucking thing. They said, hey, these people have no morals. They don't believe in God. We got to fucking infuse Jesus into them. We've got to do this. They're savages. They don't have any rules. They had fucking rules. They had laws that they lived by. They had their own moral compass. But we thought, hey, you know what? They don't match what ours are, so we need to legislate some morality into these motherfuckers. And I swear to God, this is the fucking root of colonialism. Like, hey, but guess what? These savages, these people that are living off the land, they're doing things done differently than we do. We have all this structure, and they're savages, so we need to legislate some morality into them. Let's start by codifying every fucking thing, and then they'll fucking finally be moral. It's just silly to me, and I feel like it's the root cause of why we don't really take these problems seriously, because, hey, it's illegal. Guess what? They violated that principle. Throw them in jail. Done. Pontius Pilate that shit and fucking move on, right? So we have people homeless. We have people in the fucking prison. We have people that are using drugs that are fucking dying from addiction. And it's because we already have laws on the books. They're immoral people because they're fucking failing. They're not following the law, so they're immoral. Do you understand what that does now? We now have a whole host of people that don't fit into our nice little moral box because they violated some principle or some law that man created. And so, just so happens, I'm fortunate enough to live in a time when it's not illegal to marry a white woman. For Christ's sake, I'd be deemed immoral, right? I'd be deemed immoral back in the day. Come on. No, stop. Full stop. The argument breaks down really quickly when you start to dive into looking at the extremes of the argument, looking at the counterpoints, looking at breaking down the logic and saying, okay, what is morality? How does this fit? Is morality linked to behavior? Possibly, sure. But that doesn't mean that you can change somebody's morality by legislation. You can modify their behavior. Maybe over time they do change their moral, their moral compass in some fashion. But to think that you're just gonna, otherwise, if that were the case, then I would be a proponent, I think everyone should be, of let's just make a moral society. We'll somehow infuse the golden rule into every single law that we have. I mean, it's already there. We don't need laws. If people if people were moral, if people had true morals and values, then we'd need one, and that's the golden rule, and everything would be fine. But no, we need to regulate behavior because people aren't going to be moral. And so all we can do with the law is regulate their behavior. We can try to modify education to try to educate people. That's the best fucking tool against all this stuff is education. We have so many people on this fucking platform right here that I'm on just wasting their time thinking they're chasing some fucking dragon of knowledge when they're literally going in circles looking silly. And so I don't believe that passing a law is going to change those people's behavior. Passing a law is going to stop whatever. You can regulate the behavior, but you're not going to change the morality of somebody. And so this notion that you're going to change the morality of somebody, again, you can regulate. Now, you can make an argument that behavior is morality. We'll go down that path if you want. So I guess depending on what you're doing, you may or may not be moral. But again, a couple years ago, I marry a white woman. I'm immoral according to this whole fucking definition that we've created for ourselves. So I struggle. I will never concede that point. I will never concede it. I will argue it to the day I'm dead. And I don't care if you bring in political science professors and fucking professional motherfuckers. They're fucking wrong. You can legislate behavior. You cannot legislate morality. And anytime you start to think about it, I'm going to point you to the fact that you're actually talking about behavior. Don't listen. I love you, by the way. Thank you for posting. Thanks for the argument. I love the engagement. I do. And this is the kind of engagement I love because it's the type of engagement that's like meta and it requires nuance and it really makes you think. It stretch out. Okay, what do you mean, Nate? You're fucking right. Everyone's wrong. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you believe that you can legislate morality, you're wrong. What you mean to say is you can control and regulate behavior, but you're never going to infuse morality through laws. It's not going to happen. I don't care what your Bible says. I don't care what your professor says. They're fucking wrong.